Wednesday, the 13th day of the month of Kislev, and we are finishing up Daf Samach Tes Amud Aleph, going on to today's Amud, which is Samach Tes Amud Beis Be'ezras Mizbarach, and we are in the midst of a discussion where the Gemara is analyzing the debate and the conversation between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva. The Gemara quotes that Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva, according to the Mishnah, had a debate about whether or not haza'ah was permissible on Shabbos. Haza'ah, meaning sprinkling of the Ephah of the Parah Aduma, in order to make somebody tahor. Is such a thing permissible on Shabbos? And Rabbi Akiva had said back to his Rabbi Eliezer, but if you're going to asur haza'ah, which is an issa d'Rabbanan, so then maybe we should asur shechita, which is an issa d'Oraisa. And the Gemara then said that Rabbi Eliezer was insulted by that and said, "You're mocking me." And shechita shechita is obviously mutar. That's a din d'Oraisa, and you're mocking me about shechita. His death will be through shechita, and we mentioned the shita of the Meiri in reading that Gemara. The Gemara then wanted to know, hold on a second, why is it that Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva are having this discussion, and why did Rabbi Akiva say something that was seemingly so insulting? Says the Gemara, because Rabbi Eliezer had forgotten that he had taught this din to Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva was correcting the record. He was saying, "Didn't you teach me that haza'ah was asur on Shabbos, that you cannot sprinkle the Ephah Parah Aduma on somebody that is tamei in order to make them tahor on a Shabbos?" Said the Gemara, quoting from Ula. Ula was asking the question. Let's see where we are here. Going up a drop. Ula had said, the first word on the line is Bay. It is about 2/5 down the page. That was just said outside, that Ula had said that Rabbi Eliezer, when he taught this din to Rabbi Akiva, had taught him only about hazah of truma, that it is also to do hazah to purify a kohen that needs to eat truma on Shabbos, because truma itself is not going to be derech Shabbos, and Rabbi Akiva was refuting him from the din of hazah of truma, but he thought, Rabbi Eliezer thought that Rabbi Akiva was mocking him, that he was talking about when he was mocking him, he was talking about hazah of Pesach, and that was where the confusion was in that discussion. Says the Gemara, the first word on the line is lay, halfway down the page. Masiv Rabba disagrees with Ula, and he says as follows: Heishav Rabbi Akiva Amud, that in the Brisa Rabbi Akiva responded back and said, "Hazas tame meis techiach," that the hazah of somebody that is tame as a result of a dead body should be the proof. Shechal shvi shalai liyas b'Shabbos, because in order to become purified with Ephah Parah Aduma, you need to be sprinkled on the third day and on the seventh day, and then on the seventh day you become tahor through that final sprinkling. So shechal shvi shalai liyas b'Shabbos uve erev haPesach. The seventh day is on a Shabbos and an erev Pesach. Shehi mitzvah. It is now a mitzvah to provide this Jew with haza'ah, so that he will be pure in order to bring the Korban Pesach. V'hi mishum shavus, and the Isser would only be an Isser d'Rabbanan, ve'ena derech Shabbos. And in such a case, it would not be derech Shabbos. So here you have a Jew on Erev Pesach that falls out on a Shabbos. This would be the seventh day of his purification process. All that he needs is the kohen to flick a little bit of Ephah Parah Aduma onto him, and then he's good to go. He can go and bring his Korban Pesach on that Shabbos. And the din is, says Rabbi Akiva, that you are not allowed to do that, and that is what he had said to Rabbi Eliezer. So it cannot be that Ula is correct, says Rabbah. It cannot be that it was only talking about hazah of truma. That is not correct in the Brisa. Says Rabbah, Ela vade hazah de Pesach Agmare. It's for sure that he was talking about the hazah purification for the sake of Pesach, not for the sake of truma. And if that's true, That is true. My time Rabbi Eliezer, and if it's true that Rabbi Eliezer Taka held this way, so then why did Rabbi Eliezer disagree with Rabbi Akiva? It says the Gemara, Rabbi Eliezer Gemara is akirle, that Rabbi Eliezer had Taka forgotten what he had learned. The lashon of the Gemara is akirle; it had been uprooted from him. V'asar Rabbi Akiva ad kuri Gemara. Rabbi Akiva was coming to remind him of that which he had previously taught him. Says the Gemara, okay, if that's so, so then let him say it straight. Let him say, Rebbe, you taught us that Hazah is Aser. Says the Gemara, Sava Rabbi Akiva held lav arich ara, that it's not derech eretz, to point out directly that your Rebbe has forgotten the din. So he tried to say it in a way that was a little bit roundabout, so that Torah would be taught accurately, but he would not insult Rabbi Eliezer. It seems to be that what the Gemara is saying here is that calculation was wrong. He should have said it directly, because Rabbi Eliezer was frustrated, was very upset by the way that he had said it. Says the Gemara, let's get into the weeds here. Why exactly is it that the din is that Hazah, in such a case, would not override Shabbos? Michti. Let's see. What exactly would be the problem here? You have to take the kohen would have to take the guy that is tamei, take him outside of Harabais, because it cannot be on Harabais. And you would have to sprinkle him with the Efer Paraduma. What would be the whole problem in doing all of this on a Shabbos? Says the Gemara, Til Tula Ba'almahu. This is only a problem of handling it, of carrying muktzah. Says the Gemara, Tidchi Shabbos Mishum Pesach, and Shabbos should be pushed aside for the sake of Pesach. Now, it's interesting that the Gemara is assuming that this is tilta, which is the Chara Muktzah, but you could say that maybe the problem was a problem in a Daraisa. That they would take it outside of Harabais, usually, in order to be able to sprinkle you with the paraduma water. But l'chor, that's not ma'akev. When they would make the paraduma, that have to be outside of Yerushalayim. But sprinkling the Efer paraduma could be even inside Yerushalayim, even inside the Beis Hamikdash. I mean, not inside the Beis Hamikdash. The kohen wouldn't be allowed there. But onto Harabais, l'chor, yes. The question is, where exactly would be the eruv? Did they have an eruv? It seems that they didn't, because you weren't allowed to carry your knife up there. But wherever they would do it, that seems to be the only problem would be a problem of muktzah, which is a din d'Rabbanan. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabba says, and this is a famous shita of Rabba that shows up by Lulav, by Shofar, and by Megillah. Amar Rabba says, Gzeru, this is a Gzeru d'Rabbanan, Shemi Yitlana v'Yavirena Dalad Arba Almas B'Rishus Arabim. Maybe you are going to end up violating the Isdarais of carrying. Meaning, maybe you're going to end up doing that. In order to get the para aduma ashes to where you need to get them to, or bring them from where you need to bring them to, you are going to end up carrying Dalal Amos in the Rishus Harabim. Says the Gemara, V'le Rebbe Eliezer, and according to Rebbe Eliezer, Navir, let him carry it. Rebbe Eliezer would say, he should violate this din d'Oraisa. Dahar Rebbe Eliezer, because according to Rebbe Eliezer, Machshiri Mitzvah Deichen Asa Shabbos. Rebbe Eliezer is of the opinion in general, we know this from Perak Rebbe Eliezer, the middle of the 19th Perak Maseches Shabbos, that Machshiri Mitzvah, that in order to do a mitzvah, you are going to violate even Isurim d'Oraisa on Shabbos. In the town of Rebbe Eliezer, the Mishnah says they would chop down the trees and they would light the fires and they would smelt the iron to make the knife to do the bris milah on Shabbos. So Amri, they said, Hani mili hechede gavre gufe chazi, v'rami chiyuva alei. That, where Rebbe Eliezer says the Machshiri Mitzvah are going to be Deiches Shabbos, that is only if you have somebody that you need to do the mitzvah on. Meaning that there is a mitzvah that needs to happen by this person. But the issue with this fellow is right now, he is not yet obligated in bringing Korban Pesach. Why? Because he is currently tamei. And a person that's tamei is not obligated to bring Korban Pesach. Once you sprinkle him with Efer Paraduma, now he'll be tahar, and now he'll be chayiv to bring it. But up until that point in time, there is no obligation to make him obligated. He's not yet obligated. There's no chiyuv on him. Amar Rabba says, L'divrei Rebbe Eliezer, according to Rebbe Eliezer, what comes out is cotton bari, that a healthy child, V'lamula b'Shabbos, you would be permitted to heat up water in order to strengthen him, and then give him a bris milah on Shabbos. Because on the 8th day, only on the 8th day, meaning over Yom HaShmini, Yom Basar said that's Yom HaShmini afilu b'Shabbos. Says the Gemara, because he's ready for a bris milah. A healthy child on the 8th day is ready for a bris milah. But if you would be a sick child, you wouldn't be allowed to heat up water in order to strengthen him, in order to give him a bris milah. Because right now he is not able to get a bris milah, meaning he's sick. It's also to give him a bris milah on Shabbos. So don't try to heal him on Shabbos. That would be also. He's not chayav in bris milah today. But that's a problem. This whole discussion is strange. It says Rava Amar Rava v'i barihu, and if in fact he is strong, he's a healthy child, lama lechamin la'arosa. Why do you need to heat up water at all in order to strengthen him? He's a strong child. Give him the bris. What do you need to heat up water? Heat up water afterwards, maybe, but before, and you don't need to heat up water. Ella Amar Rava, rather Rava says, I'll tell you what's going on here. Hakol cholin eitzel milah. Everybody is considered to be sick when it comes to doing a bris milah, meaning every child is 8 days old. That's a chayla. He's a chayla. So if he's such a chayla that you wouldn't be able to give him a bris at all, so then there's nothing to talk about. And if he is healthy enough to give a bris milah to, you still have to be concerned. Whether he is a healthy child or a sick child. What should the din be? You should not heat up water to strengthen him in order to give him bris milah on Shabbos, because it's not fit for him, and that's a strange thing to say. It's not fit for him, meaning he's a chayla, and therefore he shouldn't have a bris milah. Shouldn't have a bris milah. You should never have a bris milah on Shabbos. Says the Gemara, Abaye challenges Ravi. Says, Abaye Ariel Shleimal Onish Karis. If you have an uncircumcised person that didn't get a bris milah, he's going to be chayiv kares. Now, we should point out here, Rashi understands this also that we are not talking about a baby who is 8 days old. The 8-day-old baby is not going to be chayiv kares today. Who is going to be chayiv kares? So the Mishnah says, we'll see this later on, that a person that doesn't bring Korban Pesach is chayiv kares. And this would be an Erev Pesach shechalios b'Shabbos, and you have an Orel, you have a uncircumcised Jew, that if he doesn't get a bris milah, he's not going to be able to bring Korban Pesach. And if he doesn't bring Korban Pesach, then he's going to be chayiv kares. So Abaye says, I don't understand, Rava. Bris milah is an onish kares. It's an onish kares. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer, and that's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, who is the person that we are discussing here. And here you see that there is a fellow, the Gavar Chazi, that he cannot bring Korban Pesach. Can't bring Korban Pesach at all, because he's an Arel. Ukdani, and the Brisa is telling us on his kares that he gets kares. Alma, which means Rami Chiyuve Ale. Even if you are not Roi to do the mitzvah yet, since you should find a way to make yourself Roi to do the mitzvah, then you should be able to become chayiv. You should be obligated in doing so. And if you don't, you have a chiyuv kares for that. Now, with regards to the chiyuv kares of not getting a bris milah, there's a big machlokes between the Rambam and the Ravid. A person that doesn't get a bris milah, at what point in time are they chayiv kares? So are you chayiv kares immediately, and then when you get a bris milah, the kares goes away, meaning that's tshuva on the kares, or you are only chayiv kares if you die without having had a bris milah. But up until the point in time, you don't have any chiyuv kares. That has some important nafkaminas. But that's not the kares that we're talking about here. The kares that we're talking about is the kares that a person would be chayiv for not bringing Korban Pesach, and that, according to everybody, happens immediately after not bringing Korban Pesach if you'd be chayiv in it. And therefore, Rav is understanding here that everybody is a chayla with regards to a milah, and therefore they're not roy to get a bris. Doesn't make any sense, says Abaye, according to Rabbi Eliezer. Amar Rabbi says, I'll explain it to you. Kasava Rabbi Eliezer, bottom line of Samach Tesam Aleph, Kasava Rabbi Eliezer in Shechtin v'Zokin al Tamisheretz. You're not allowed to shech the Korban Pesach and to sprinkle his blood for a person with in mind, to have to include a person that is Tamei Sheretz. He's not a Tamei Meis, he's a Tamei Sheretz. So he's not allowed to be in the Beis HaMikdash, and he is not allowed to eat from the Korban Pesach. And you're not allowed to shech the Korban Pesach, you're not allowed to do Shrikas Hadam for this fellow. Says the Gemara, top of Samach Tes Amud Beis, V'chol she'ilu b'yachid nidche, and wherever, here's the category, anywhere that a yachid, that an individual is nidche, is pushed aside to bring Pesach Sheni, b'tzibur avdi b'tuma. If it would be with a community, the whole community would have this tuma, then they would be able to do so. V'chol milsa de isa b'tzibur is b'yachid. And any time that the whole kehillah would be obligated, the isa b'tzibur is b'yachid, that the whole community would be obligated, the individual is also obligated. V'chol milsa de leki b'tzibur less b'yachid. And any time that it would not be a chiv for the whole community to do Korban Pesach, less b'yachid, then an individual is also not able to bring Korban Pesach. Now, what are these categories here? Says the Gemara, Arelus, with regards to circumcision, person that hasn't had a bris milah, if the vast majority of the community, everybody coming is an orel, Arelim ninhu, Amrinhu, what do we say to them? Kumu, get up, mahlu, nafshaychu, and give yourselves bris milahs, and then you can go bring Korban Pesach. Va'avdi pischa, go and bring the Korban Pesach. Yachinami, and that's true by an individual as well. Amrinhu, we say to him, kum mahul, go and get a bris. Va'avi pischa, and then bring Korban Pesach. V'iloi mahel, but if you choose not to do so, va'avid, and you make a Korban Pesach, meaning as an arel, onish karis, you have a chiv karis, whether you did make it or you didn't. Meaning you're not chayiv in Korban Pesach, but you should have made yourself chayiv in Korban Pesach. What about Tumah? Tumah, the kol tzibur tameim, and if everybody in the tzibur is tamei, loy medinon alayhu, we don't sprinkle mei paraduma on everybody. Ela avdi betuma. We go and we tell them, go and bring the Korban Pesach with everybody instead of Tumah. And in such a case, yachid nami pater. In such a case, an individual would be exempt, meaning that there is a difference with regards to there's a difference with regards to Arel and with regards to Tumah. The only thing that you would end up with people, with the tzibur bringing Pesach Rishon, if everybody had the same problem, would be if they had Tumah Meis, not if they were Arelim. And Arel does not have does not have either of the two dispensations of if the tzibur would have it, they would do it in a state of Tumah, and that a Yachid would be pushed up to Pesach Sheni. That doesn't exist for either. That's effectively what Rabbi Eliezer is saying here. And therefore, this explains why a person that is a Tamei Meis doesn't necessarily need to have Hazah, but a person that is an Arel absolutely would need to get a bris milah. So Amar Lei Rav Huna b'Rei Rav Yeshua Rava, says Rav Huna the son of Rav Yeshua to Rava, v'harei Pesach Sheni, with regards to Pesach Sheni delesa b'tzibur, that you wouldn't have Pesach Sheni ever in a state the tzibur would never bring Pesach Sheni. V'isa b'yachid, and an individual does have Pesach Sheni. What would you say about this example? I mean, this breaks the rule, because Pesach Sheni is the less of a tzibur. You wouldn't have that as a community, and isa b'yachid. And we had said before, kol she ilu b'yachid nidcha b'tzibur avdi b'tumah v'chol milsa de isa b'tzibur. Everything that exists by a community is b'yachid, exists by the individual, and that's not true with regards to Tamei Meis and Pesach Sheni. So Amar Lei, he says to him, Rava says back to Rav Huna, Hasam, Amar Lei Shani Hasam, it's different there. Daha Avid Lei Tzibur B'Rishon, because there the whole community could bring it with Pesach Rishon, meaning if the whole community, if the whole community brought Korban Pesach Rishon, because they were in a state of Tumah's Meis, but he was a Tamei Sheretz, then he would not be allowed to bring Korban Pesach, and that would be the exception here. Meisive, and the Gemara rejects that. They say, I don't understand. Yochel, you might think lo yehei onish karis, that he only gets an ownership of karis ela shehu tahar in a state where he is tar. And he wasn't far away. Arel v'tamei sheretz, but what about an arel and a tamei sheretz? This is exactly what we're talking about here. An arel and a tamei sheretz, v'shar kol atmeim minayin, and the other tmeim. How do you know? Meaning, how do you know that they are also pushed off to Pesach Sheni? Talmud Lema, the pasuk says, "V'ha'ish." V'ha'ish, the pasuk says, and the person asher loy asher loy haya tamen nefesh v'derech loy haya v'chadal asas haPesach. So then the pasuk says v'nichrasa. That's what he gets karis. But the pasuk says v'ha'ish, and the person, says the Gemara, that says the Brisa, since the Brisa is looking for a proof for how do you know that a tamei sheretz is included in this? Kasavar in shechtim, Kasavar clearly holds in shechtim v'zorkin al tamei sheretz, that you are never allowed to be shechet and you're never allowed to be zorik for a tamei sheretz. The shechtim v'zorkin al tamei sheretz, because if you would be able to shecht and to do zrika for a tamei sheretz, why would I need to chase after them? To meaning, why would I need to be seeking out a pasuk to tell me that they are not included, that they are not able to bring Korban Pesach? So Hainu Tahar, that's included in Tahar, meaning he's exactly the same as the person that's Tahar, because he's not Tamei Meis. That's the only thing that we care about. Yeah, he is Chayiv in Korban Pesach. And if he doesn't bring it, then he doesn't get kares, and he doesn't get pushed off to Pesach Sheni. So he has the same din as Satar. So Alma Afalgav the Chazi, what you see from this price is that even though he is not Chazi, meaning, and this is a whole kunsia, even though he is not able to bring Korban Pesach right now because he is Tamei Sheretz, or he is an Arel, he's Lei Chazi, he is not able to bring Korban Pesach. Chiyuva Alayu, he does have the Chiyuv. The chiyuv exists by him, and that's exactly what the pasuk is telling you here, because we're including v'ha'ish, and the person, which includes the tamei sheretz and the arel, would be chayiv to have a chiyuv kares. But why would he have a chiyuv kares? He's not chayiv to bring the carbon. He's not able to bring the carbon. No, he has the chiyuv to figure out a way to make sure that he brings the carbon. Says even if it's not the case of the community, meaning that the community wouldn't have to do hazah in order to become tahar, this individual would. That's what we are proving here. The afalgav the lesser tzibur is a biyachid. Even though the tzibur is not obligated in doing this, the yachid absolutely would be obligated in doing this. And what we see here is that it cannot be, according to Rabbi Eliezer, that Rabbi Eliezer would say that hazah is it cannot be that hazah would be aser. Ela Amar Rava says, Kasav Rabbi Eliezer is clearly of the opinion that sheichten v'zarkin al tamei sheretz, that you can absolutely shecht the Korban Pesach, and you can be zorik, and you can sprinkle the blood on the mizbech, having in mind the tamei sheretz, somebody that is tumah, as long as he's not a tamei meis. If he's a tamei sheretz, that's okay. And this would be exactly the same din for a tamei meis if this is his seventh day of becoming tahor, because all that he needs to do is have hazah. The same way that the tamei sheretz needs to go to the mikveh, this guy has to have hazah, has to have the paraduma sprinkled on him. Says the Gemara, hazah lemai. So then, what does he need hazah for? La'achila, in order to eat from the Korban Pesach. That's what he would need hazah for. Says the Gemara, and achilas psachim loy ma'akva. But eating the Korban Pesach, that's a mitzvah's essay. Rashi says that's a positive obligation. It is not. It's not going to incur the Issachar, meaning as long as you were included in a chabura that brought Korban Pesach, even if you didn't eat it, you are not chayiv kares. And therefore, Rabbi Eliezer could absolutely hold that that you are not able to Rabbi Eliezer could tell you that even if you didn't fix yourself up, you didn't go to the mikveh, and you didn't have hazah, you can still fulfill the mitzvah of Korban Pesach. Amalei Rav Ada bar Ava Rava, says Rav Ada bar Ava to Rava, I don't understand. If this is so, im kain nimtza Pesach nishchat shaloi la'ochlav. What comes out is that you have now shechted the Korban Pesach for somebody that cannot eat it, because they cannot become tahar, because they cannot have azah, even though they are technically chayev, and now you are shechting Korban Pesach for somebody that cannot eat it. And the shechting Korban Pesach for somebody that cannot eat it is going to pass the whole korban. If you shechted it shaloi la'ochlav, for people that cannot eat it. And that's what we saw in the Gemara on Samech Aleph. Amar Leis says Rava, back to Rav Barava, an important chakira here. Amar Leis says shaloi la'ochlav chole v'zakin. Now, shaloi la'ochlav means somebody that is categorically incapable of eating from the Korban Pesach. Deloi chazi, he is absolutely incapable. He's not fitting, physically unfit from eating Korban Pesach. Aval hai, this fellow, mechsa chazi, he is absolutely able to eat it. Why? Because tikunehu deloi mitakin, and the reason that he wouldn't is that he hasn't gone and fixed himself up. But practically speaking, fundamentally, he can be included in the Korban Pesach through you having in mind, you going up to the Beis HaMikdash, you who are tahar, you can have him in mind that the Korban Pesach is going to be shechted on his behalf. He's part of the Chabura. He's not considered to be a categoric shaloi la'ochlav. He can eat it. He's just not halachically able to. He's physically able to. He's not halachically able to. And that Chakira now explains the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Says the Gemara, continuing on, Klal Amar Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva taught us a rule. And this was the rule that Rabbi Akiva had taught us before at the end of the Mishnah. The rule is, says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, Klal Amar Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said a klal said a rule. Kol malacha she'ef shel ha'aseh erev Shabbos. Any malacha that you are able to do from erev Shabbos, and in derech Shabbos does not push away Shabbos. Shchita, but with regard to shchita that you cannot do from erev Shabbos, that is derech Shabbos. So that was the klal. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rav, halacha Rabbi Akiva. Says Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rav, we pass on like Rabbi Akiva. And we also told this din with regards to bris milah against the sheet of Rabbi Eliezer. Klal Amar Rabbi Akiva. This was the rule that Rabbi Akiva said. Kol malacha she'ef shel ha'aseh erev Shabbos, in derech Shabbos, anything that you could do from before Shabbos, you have to do from before Shabbos. Mila she'ef shel ha'aseh erev Shabbos, but mila, which you cannot do, would be firstly you wouldn't be doing a bris milah, and secondly that would be chavala. You'd just be wounding a child for no good reason. That would be an issa d'oraisa. You shouldn't do that. There's no possibility, no permissibility of doing the bris milah on erev Shabbos. Therefore, it is derech Shabbos. There it overrides Shabbos. Va'amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rav, says Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rav, halacha Rabbi Akiva. We pass on like Rabbi Akiva. Utzricha, and you need both of these cases. You need the case both with regards to Pesach and with regards to Milah. You need the klalim in both cases. Why? Utzricha di ashmin and gabi Pesach, because if you only knew the din by Pesach, hasam, there you would say mitzvah loy dachu Shabbos, that the mitzvah doesn't override Shabbos. Mishum de loy nichrusu aleha shlosh brisas, because bris milah has 13 brisas that are said about it, 13 covenants that are said about the bris milah, and therefore gabi Pesach, you would not, it would not be derech Shabbos because it's not as chashuv as bris milah. Aval milah the nichrusu aleha shlosh brisas, but milah that 13 covenants were said about it, ema litchi. That's where you would say this klal, that you have to violate Shabbos in order to bris milah. V'iyashmin milah, but if you would only have taught me milah, hasam hu the machshira mitzvah loy derech Shabbos. There, the machshira mitzvah would not override Shabbos, the leka kares, because there would be no kares. There's no kares if you didn't do the bris milah. Rashi here points out, what do you mean there's no kares if you don't do the bris milah? Rashi says l'boy bayom, for the baby that day, im yimel lamachar, as long as he gets bris milah tomorrow. Meaning the baby is for sure, both according to the Rambam and according to the Ravid, he's not going to be chiv kares from the time he's 8 days old, because he is not yet chayv in giving himself a bris milah. From the time that he's 13, maybe at the age of 13, now he becomes chiv kares. Although that would only be from the age of 20, depending on how you understand kares. That's only a din based in shalmala, which you get when you are 20. So the baby at 8 days old is not going to get kares. The leka kares aval Pesach, but with regards to Pesach, the ika kares, that there is kares ema lidchi, you would say that you do get that you do violate Shabbos, and you would even violate the Machshirei Pesach in order to be able to ensure that you are not in a situation of chiyuv kares for not bringing the Korban Pesach. And Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we will continue from the Mishnah at the bottom of Samach Tes Amud Beis tomorrow, as we have Baruch Hashem more or less caught up, and looking forward to seeing everybody tomorrow morning. Have a wonderful day.